Seething with rage, I went to the commander's residence. Night had just fallen and Su Huizu was still studying the battle situation by lamplight. Seeing me stride in with anger written across my face, he stared at me in astonishment. I slumped heavily onto the bench beside the table, breathing hard. Though some time had passed, my emotions still refused to calm. Su Huizu fixed his gaze on me for a moment, then finally could not help asking, "General Yang, you look ready to explode with anger. What has happened?" I forced myself to steady my breathing. Only after a long while did I feel slightly composed. Straightening my back, I said solemnly, enunciating each word, "Your Highness, you must remain calm. The Wumu Testament has been lost." At my words, Su Huizu's body trembled, his voice quavered as he stammered, The book, lost?" I nodded without saying more, deliberately giving him time to digest what had happened. Su Huizu collapsed back into his seat, muttering, How could it possibly be lost?" I ground my teeth and said it was Princess Tianxi. Yet Su Huizu, being a seasoned general, quickly regained his composure. He asked, "Start from the beginning, what exactly happened?" I then recounted to him the contents of Yang Yu's letter, though I carefully concealed what had transpired the previous night. After hearing me out, Su Huizu mused, "From what I have seen, the princess is devoted to you, her feelings deep and sincere, certainly not feigned. How could she betray you?" I replied coldly, "She has been deceiving me from the very beginning. Ever since she nursed me back to health and vaping, everything was false. Her acting was flawless. She could have gone straight into making films." Su Huizu stared wide-eyed. "Films?" In my fury, I spoke without thinking and quickly corrected myself. In any case, all that so-called deep affection was nothing but hollow pretense. Su Huizu did not press the point. He lacked the heart to pursue it further. Instead, he said, "Speaking of the princess, I recall something. The day my household was massacred, you and I devised a plan to lure Su Fu into our trap. Do you still remember the princess's sudden mysterious illness at that time?" I slapped the tea table. "Exactly. How could her illness have struck at such a perfectly convenient moment? At the time I personally took her pulse and found no sign of illness at all." So even then she was creating an opening for Su Fu. "She fooled me terribly," Su Huizu said, thinking back now. "It must also have been for the sake of the Wumu Testament. General Yang, from these 2 months of observation, I am convinced the princess is not inherently vicious. She may have had her own hardships. Perhaps she truly acted to save your life." I muttered, "Yes, she did it for my sake. She was afraid this history would be." At that point I abruptly broke off. Su Huizu stared in confusion. "History? General Yang, why are you speaking so strangely today?" I brushed it aside. "Your Highness," I muddled with anger, "pay no heed to my ramblings." Su Huizu continued, "So in other words, the Wumu Testament is likely about to fall into Zhu Di's hands?" I nodded. 8 or 9 chances out of 10 it will be so. "Your Highness, I have come now to beg your pardon. Since the book was lost while in Yang Yang's keeping, then finding it again must also be done by Yang Yang's own hand." Su Huizu asked, "You mean to pursue the princess and reclaim the book?" I answered with a nod. "Your Highness, having let this book slip from my grasp weighs heavily on me. If it were merely lost or destroyed, that would be one thing, but now it is about to fall into Zhu Di's hands. Yang Yang has truly wronged you." Hearing this, Su Huizu straightened and declared, "General Yang, since I have entrusted the book to you, it no longer concerns me. Even if you were to carry it yourself and hand it to Zhu Di, I would not reproach you with a single word. It is not arrogance when I say this. Even if that brat Zhu Di obtains the Wumu Testament, what of it? Could he truly overturn his fate merely by relying on a dead book to stage a miraculous comeback?" His forced nonchalance only made my unease deepen, for I knew history all too well. It might be precisely because of this very book that the entire course of the war would be turned upside down. Thus I said, "Your Highness, there is no need to comfort me. I came here today with my mind made up. If I fail to retrieve this book, I will have no face to see you again. As for the post of Lieutenant General, please appoint another in my stead." Su Huizu fell silent for a long time before finally speaking. General Yang, have you truly made up your mind? I nodded with unwavering determination. Su Huizu said, since that is so, then go and do as you have decided. Be careful in all things. It is only a book, do not take it too much to heart. I replied, Your Highness, the road ahead is fraught with peril. Please take care of yourself, Yang will be off. With that I rose, took my leave and departed. Stepping out of the commander's residence, I was met by a gust of cold wind that finally cleared my head a little. Walking along the main street of Dongcheng City at night, my thoughts surged like tides. Yang Yu's betrayal had driven my spirits to rock bottom. What pained me most was not losing the Wumu Testament, but the fact that in Yang Yu's heart I could not compete with Zhu Di. The more I thought about it, the more wretched I felt, a man from 600 years in the future actually losing to an ancient figure. Back at my private courtyard, I lay down in gloomy exhaustion. The bed still carried a faint trace of Yang Yu's fragrance. I tossed and turned until dawn was nearly breaking before drifting into a hazy sleep, only to wake again after barely an hour, burdened by worry I could not truly rest. I rose, the sky just growing pale. In the northern dawn the air felt so cold it could almost freeze solid. After dressing I left without a word to anyone, heading north out of the city alone. Nothing noteworthy occurred along the way. Within just 2 days I reached the outskirts of Beiping. During those 2 days I gained nothing, no trace of Yang Yue, and even Dong Fengxiao and Feng Qingyang seemed to have vanished into thin air. Only the strict vigilance of the towns and cities along the route was evident, every gate rigorously searched, the atmosphere taut with the imminence of war. Before departing I had slightly altered my appearance, aging my features so that I looked markedly older. Thus I passed through towns and cities without much trouble. That day, arriving outside Beiping, I gazed up at its towering walls and could not help but feel a surge of emotion. I had come to Beiping several times already, each entry and exit colored by different moods. As I prepared to enter now, I wondered what sort of feeling would accompany me when I left again in the future. A large crowd had gathered before the city gate. When I drew closer I saw that a group of soldiers were driving away a throng of raggedly dressed people. One officer shouted, "Be off with you at once. If you continue to loiter here and provoke the Lord's temper, he'll have you all arrested." The commoners wailed and sobbed, raising their voices in endless clamor. After listening for a while I pieced together the gist. They were refugees who had fled from the south, but Beiping's garrison feared enemy spies hidden among them and refused to let them enter, so the two sides were locked in a standoff at the gate. Just as the commotion was at its height, hoofbeats suddenly sounded. A squad of riders galloped up from outside the city. I looked up and my eyes brightened. The man leading them was a young general bearing himself with striking vigor and heroic spirit. His face seemed oddly familiar, but I could not recall where I had seen him before. As the young general drew near, the shouting of officials and civilians alike abruptly subsided. The officer who had been yelling hurried forward, bowing deeply. "Heir apparent, Your Highness, you have returned." At the words, "heir apparent," I suddenly understood. This young general was Zhu Di's eldest son. Yu Dashan had told me his name was Zhu Gaoqi, no wonder he looked familiar. Examining him more closely I saw that his build and features indeed resembled Zhu Di's. Zhu Gaoqi gave a soft grunt and asked, "What is happening here? Why such an unbearable racket?" The officer replied, "Your Highness, these people are refugees from the south. This humble officer fears that southern spies may be hiding among them and so dares not allow them into the city." Zhu Gaoqi's expression darkened. "Nonsense. At a glance anyone can see they are impoverished commoners. How could they be spies?" The officer pulled a bitter face. "Your Highness, spies mingle among ordinary folk precisely because they cannot be recognized." Zhu Gaoqi said coldly, "Even if there are 1 or 2 spies among them, what can they really do? If you treat the people this way, where will the Yan army's popular support come from? Open the gates at once and let them in." The officer dared not argue further and promptly shouted orders to open the city. The refugees broke into a chorus of praise, lauding the heir apparent's wisdom. I mingled with them, entering the city in high spirits, thinking that Zhu Gaoqi truly acted in a manner befitting his father's style. Once inside, Beiping appeared unchanged. I headed straight for Yu Dashan's residence. In Beiping, aside from knowing Zhu Di's family, Yu Dashan was the only person I truly recognized. When I stepped through the gate, Yu Dashan was practicing his boxing in the garden. I watched him with a smile, but he did not notice me, his fists still whistling through the air with vigor. I thought to myself that Yu Dashan's martial arts had shown little progress in the last 2 years. It must be a matter of limited talent. When he finished his set, I shouted, "Good." Yu Dashan spun around in surprise. Seeing me, he froze for a moment and asked, "Who are you?" I laughed. "Brother Yu, we've been apart for less than half a year and you already cannot recognize my voice." Yu Dashan stammered, "You're Brother Yang." I smiled and nodded. Yu Dashan lunged forward and threw his arms around me. "Brother Yang, I've missed you like crazy," he exclaimed, overcome with emotion. Seeing how moved he was, I was not surprised. Yu Dashan is a man of open temperament, his feelings always visible in word and deed, which only makes his upright, endearing nature shine all the more. That evening a banquet was laid in the residence, and Yu Dashan and I drank together. I told him all that had happened since we parted. When I reached the part about Yang Yu stealing the book, Yu Dashan was utterly shocked. "The princess stole the Wumu Testament. How is that possible?" I gave a bitter smile. "Brother Yu, would I lie to you? What worries me most now is that the book will fall into Zhu Di's hands. If that happens, our southern army will be in grave danger." Yu Dashan asked, "So what do you plan to do now?" I pondered and said, "Has Ye returned to Beiping recently?" Yu Dashan shook his head. "I've been in Beiping all along and haven't seen the princess. But my activities are confined to Tianxiang Palace. As for the Yan Prince's mansion, people like us have no access there." I clapped my hands. "There's no time to lose. I'll infiltrate the prince's mansion tonight." Yu Dashan warned, "Yan Prince's residence is heavily guarded, Brother Yang. Please be extremely careful." I nodded in agreement. With our armies now in open conflict and Zhu Di and I having already met on the battlefield several times, I could no longer seek an audience through proper etiquette. Even calling on the princess consort first would be inappropriate. Thus I resolved to investigate by night, and only after probing Zhu Di's situation would I decide my next step. By the end of the second watch of the night, I donned my night attire and went alone straight toward the Yan Prince's mansion. That residence was no longer unfamiliar terrain to me, so once inside the compound I headed directly for Zhu Di's study. Lights glowed within. It seemed someone was still there. I chose a well-concealed spot, one where patrolling guards never passed. Wetting my finger with saliva, I quietly bored a small hole and put my eye to it. Inside were 2 familiar figures, Zhu Di and the monk Daoyan. I heard Zhu Di say, "Master, can we truly obtain the Wumu Testament this time?" At the words, Wumu Testament, my heart gave a violent jolt. Fate had brought me here at precisely the right moment. On my arrival, I was already hearing them speak of the crucial matter. Daoyan replied, "Your Highness's defeat this time was not at the hands of Su Huizu, but rather..." Zhu Di cut in, "That brat Yang. He has ruined my plans time and again. If not for him, Su Huizu would long ago have followed Chao Yong into oblivion." Daoyan smiled. "Your Highness need not worry. Yang's days are numbered. The 10,000 evil soul scattering powder has already flared up twice. If it erupts once more, he will be reduced to a cripple hardly worth fearing." Zhu Di laughed. "Exactly. To grow angry over someone who is about to become a cripple, now that would truly be pointless." Ha ha ha. Zhu Di's laughter sent a chill down my spine. The name 10,000 evil soul scattering powder had been mentioned twice before by Dongfang Xiao, both times when my internal strength suddenly vanished. Hearing Daoyan repeat those 5 words now, I could not help wondering whether I truly had been poisoned by that very substance. But when could I have been poisoned? A cold thought struck me. Could it have been Yang Yu? As soon as this suspicion arose, my resentment toward her deepened yet again. Why did my mind leap to her? Because apart from Yang Yu, no one had much chance to administer poison to me. From several odd remarks Yang Yu had made, it was clear she knew of the 10,000 evil soul-scattering powder. Ever since the theft of the book, I had come to doubt her in all things. Inside, Zhu Di went on, once Yang Yang is eliminated, we will send Dong Fangxiao to infiltrate the southern camp and assassinate Su Huizu. Then we can reenact the affair of Chao Yong and march our army south straight toward Yingtian. Dao Yan cautioned, Your Highness, Dong Fangxiao's ambition is not small, yet we must be wary of him. Zhu Di sneered. Humph. Qin Yuliang once towered over the realm and achieved nothing in the end. What is Dong Fangxiao in comparison? In my eyes he is nothing more than a dog. I was startled, so Zhu Di had long known Dong Fangxiao's true identity. How laughable that Dong Fangxiao was still scheming so earnestly. Compared to Zhu Di, his plotting was childishly naive. Dao Yan said the antidote to the 10,000 evil soul-scattering powder is still in Dong Fangxiao's hands. Without that antidote, the princess will not hand over the Wumu Testament. This puts us in a bit of a bind. His words filled me with fresh confusion, yet I could not untangle the threads. Zhu Di continued, Right now we have two primary objectives: securing the Wumu Testament and eliminating Yang Yang. As for Ye, I will explain things to her personally. Do not forget, we still have Feng Qinyang. Dao Yan brightened. Indeed. How could I have forgotten Feng Qinyang? If your highness uses the princess as bait, there is no way Feng Qinyang will not fall into line. The more I listened, the more bewildered I became. How had matters grown so convoluted? How had Yang Yu become entangled with Feng Qinyang? No matter how I racked my brains, I could not grasp the full connection and could only keep listening. Dao Yan said, Your Highness, there is another matter. In order to support the great battle in Shandong, Zhu Yunlun has transferred 80% of Yingtian's troops there. Yingtian is now virtually defenseless. We must prepare early. Zhu Di asked, Have you already made contact with the secret envoy sent by Meng Kai? Dao Yan nodded. The envoy brought excellent news. Zhu Yunlun has entrusted all of Yingtian's defenses to Li Jinglong. Li Jinglong resents Zhu Yunlun for removing him from his post as Northern Expedition Commander and already harbors rebellious intentions. Meng Kai hinted that we must make arrangements soon. Zhu Di slapped the table. Excellent. Dispatch men south at once. We must draw Li Jinglong into our camp. Dao Yan bowed in assent. My heart was gripped by alarm. I had not expected so many problems to already lurk within Yingtian itself. Meng Kai, the Prince of the South, had colluded with Zhu Di as far back as Zhu Yuanzhang's reign, and Li Jinglong's resentment was highly plausible. These two hidden bombs buried in Yingtian could explode at any moment, and the devastation they would unleash would be beyond measure. Inside, Zhu Di continued, The pressing issue is that Su Huizu will soon march north. Without the Wumu Testament, we will have no means to withstand him. Master, do you have any way to delay them for a few days? Dao Yan laughed. I do have a stratagem. Zhu Di's face lit up. Master, speak quickly. Dao Yan said, Ever since the princess took the book, Yang Yang has left the army and headed north. We can use this as the basis of a ruse, send an envoy to the southern army bearing a letter claiming Yang Yang has been captured by us. That should delay them for several days. Zhu Di clapped his hands. Master, a brilliant stratagem. Only Yang Yang's martial arts are formidable, we must not underestimate him. Dao Yan merely smiled without replying. At those words I flared up in anger. This was the perfect opportunity. I struck out with my palm, shattering the window at once, and leapt inside. Zhu Di and Dao Yan were stunned by my sudden appearance. Zhu Di cried out, Guards! I sneered, Your Highness, weren't you just planning to capture me? Yang Yang is here, why not act now? Zhu Di said nothing. I advanced on the two of them step by measured step. 3 steps, 2 steps. Just as I felt victory within my grasp, the floor suddenly gave way beneath me. The board split open into a wide pit. Caught completely off guard, I snapped my right palm downward to borrow force and attempted to vault out of the hole. But the light above vanished as a large net dropped over my head. My forward momentum spent and no strength gathered for a leap, I was entangled and plunged straight downward. A metallic clang sounded overhead, the trapdoor had slammed shut. Everything happened in a blur, but my plunge did not lessen in the slightest. In the pitch-black shaft I had no idea how deep it was. I could only strike downward again and again with my palms. On the third blow my strength finally met resistance, and I used it to twist in midair and land on my feet. The underground space was utterly lightless. I had no idea what kind of place I had fallen into. I took out a firefold intending to ignite it when a gust of wind suddenly rushed at me from the left, carrying a foul, rancid stench. I barely had time to dodge right before something huge hurtled past. I tucked the firefold back into my robe as that thing lunged again. Using the sound of its movement to judge position, I thrust out my right palm with 30% of my strength. A sharp slap sounded. My hand had struck something soft and yielding like the body of a ferocious beast. The beast took my blow and roared like a tiger, not daring to charge again for a moment. In the darkness I could see only 2 green gleaming points, its eyes. The silence was absolute, broken only by its harsh breathing. I steadied my mind. With my current level of martial skill, no ordinary beast could truly faze me, yet I did not know what other dangers might lurk in this pit. Listening carefully, I heard nothing beyond the creature's breathing. The beast was clearly ravenous, yet after a brief rest it attacked again. I dared not be careless. After evading 2 of its lunges, I seized an opening and struck its head with 50% of my true strength. At this level my palm power could crack boulders. No beast could endure such a blow. It let out a final thunderous roar and collapsed with a crash, unable to rise again. Only then did I kindle the firefold. Light flared up, revealing a massive carcass lying ahead, blood streaming from its mouth and nose. It was already dead. Studying it more closely, I realized it was a lion. I could not help but marvel. China should not yet have lions at this time. Where had Zhu Di obtained such a fierce creature? Had it been an ordinary person, they would long since have served as this lion's breakfast. After examining the lion, I turned my attention to the surrounding terrain. I was in a square underground cell roughly 3 zhang across in every direction. I went to each wall and struck it, yet the muffled echo told me there were no adjoining chambers. Looking up, I saw the ceiling 6 or 7 zhang above, far beyond the reach of any lightfoot skill. Just as I was about to study it further, a sting at my fingertips warned me that the firefold had burned down. In the next instant, darkness swallowed my vision. Feeling inside my robe, I realized in alarm I had no more firefolds. With the light spent, I would have to grope my way through the blackness. I used my wall gecko skill to climb along the walls to the top. Knocking on the cover overhead, I heard the ring of metal. Pushing with all my strength did nothing. With no purchase to leverage at that height, I could only slide back down to the floor in defeat. A wave of despair swept through me. Was I truly going to die trapped in this lightless dungeon? With all hope seemingly gone, my thoughts began to run wild. I had once been a high school student of the 21st century, and by a freak accident I was flung back into the ancient Ming dynasty 600 years in the past. Not only had I learned martial arts here, I had also been drawn into a struggle for the imperial throne. A modern student cast into this brutal era of war where the weak are meat for the strong, living amid intrigue and scheming and yet daring to contend with Zhu Di, a warlord of chaotic times. Was this not like a praying mantis trying to stop a chariot, absurd beyond measure? The more I thought, the heavier my despondency grew. What pained me most, however, was Yang Yu. Like me, she had come from the future, yet under the weight of history's great tide she had chosen a path opposite mine, parting ways entirely. I could no longer tell whether she was wrong or I was. After a spell of such wild thoughts, hunger gnawed at my belly and waves of fear rose in my heart. If no one came to rescue me, was I destined to die here, buried in this pit? A so-called great hero Jin Yong perishing in an unknown dungeon, years later his mysterious disappearance would become a major unsolved riddle for both the martial world and the court. Under the twin pressures of terror and hunger I finally sank into a deep sleep. In my dream I saw the home I once had in the modern world, saw the competition, saw those 4 ancient-looking volumes of Heaven's Sword and Dragon Saber. In an instant the scene shifted and a pure ethereal face appeared before my eyes. It was Zhang Minor. I cried out, "Minor Ji," yet that face gradually blurred and slowly faded away. I chased after her shouting, "Minor Ji." Just as she suddenly turned around, that face abruptly transformed into Yang Yu's delicate oval visage. Startled, I let go. Yang Yu's features held a mysterious smile and I could not help but cry out, You, why did you deceive me?" Yang Yu's smiling face gradually faded from sight. I rushed forward only for Zhu Di to suddenly appear before me. I was so taken aback that for a moment I no longer knew where I was. In a muddled daze I did not know how long I drifted. At last I awoke, roused by gnawing hunger, yet what my eyes perceived upon waking made me feel it would almost have been better not to wake at all. In my dreams my eyes could still behold things, but here in this dim dungeon, with not a trace of outside light, even with deep internal strength, even with the marvelous arts of Qian Kun de Nuaene Jing Jing, my vision was nothing but pitch black. When I stretched out my hand I could not even see my own fingers. In this sunless dungeon I had no idea how long I had been asleep. From the moment I awoke I was already forgotten by time, and I too forgot time. My body was brimming with inner strength, yet the onslaught of hunger was not something any martial art could dispel. Was there anything more terrifying than hunger? There was thirst. As time trickled by, waves of thirst far more unbearable than hunger crashed over me again and again. I finally understood what sort of torment those who perish of thirst in the desert must endure. Since coming to this ancient era I had brushed against death more than once. Whether falling from the cliff in the Kunlun Mountains back then, or being wounded by Dongfeng Xiao in the great battle at Shaolin, or even being pierced by the Heaven's Sword, none of it was as unbearable as what I now faced. This hunger and thirst were 10 times more torturous than being slain by blade or sword. They were a trial at the very limits of the body. In my mind time no longer existed. I knew only to circulate my internal energy to endure hunger and thirst. Yet a person's latent strength must one day be exhausted. Was I truly going to die here in this gloomy dungeon? When hunger became utterly unbearable I suddenly recalled that lion, the one that had died before my eyes. Though I had never eaten raw meat and its stench was overwhelming, once hunger grew fierce I could no longer care about such things. The hunger was eased a little, yet the thirst remained tormenting. It only relieved an urgent need for the moment. At best it gave me a few more days to struggle. As time continued to pass my vision and senses grew increasingly blurred. During this period I forced myself countless times not to fall asleep, for I knew a fair bit of medicine and understood that in such a condition if one fell asleep one might never wake again. Even if it was only a matter of delaying death by a few days, as long as there remained the faintest thread of hope, who could bear not to struggle for it? The instinct to survive is within every human being. At the boundary between life and death, all that remains is struggle. Finally, when I truly could no longer hold on and my eyelids had grown so heavy that they could not stay open, I dimly heard a sharp paw sound. Through the narrow slit of my nearly closed eyes I sensed a thread of light. I snapped my eyes open. Blazing light from above stabbed into pupils that had long been starved of brightness, causing sharp pain, yet I forced myself to keep them wide, terrified that this sudden beam of light might vanish in an instant. In that instant I did not know from where a surge of strength erupted within me. I leapt up from the ground, grasped the wall with both hands, and clambered upward. Just as I neared the top I kicked hard against the wall with both feet and sprang out of the dungeon. The light above ground was even more intense, yet I could not bear to close my eyes. The moment I escaped that cage I felt with piercing clarity how beautiful the world truly was. As my feet touched solid ground, the first thing that entered my vision was a familiar face. Yang Yu? Oh no. In my dazed state I nearly mistook her identity. It was actually the consort of the Yen prince. Overcome with joy, I almost wept and said, "Auntie." Before I could finish the sentence, my legs gave way and I collapsed unconscious to the ground. When I next awoke, my body was lying upon a soft yielding bed. As my memory returned, I realized it was the consort of the Yen prince who had rescued me. I could not help but take stock of the room. It was clearly a young woman's boudoir, embroidered pillows, brocade quilts, gauzy silk curtains draping from the bed. Wrapped in the warm quilt, I caught a faint, exceedingly familiar fragrance in my nose. It was Yang Yu's, without a doubt the very subtle scent of hers that I would never forget for as long as I lived, a fragrance that made me both rejoice and resent. Could this room be Yang Yu's own boudoir? How long had I slept here this time? I braced my hands against the mattress, intending to rise, but my arms were weak and I could not manage to lift my body from the bed. It was no surprise, after starving so long in the dungeon and then sleeping continuously upon release, even an iron body could not withstand such strain. Though my cultivated true qi remained abundant, my physical functions had been severely damaged. I lay back breathing heavily when suddenly a soft creak sounded, the door opened. I quickly turned my head. The consort of the Yen prince entered carrying a wooden tray in her hands. I called out, "Auntie." The moment the words left my mouth, even I barely recognized my own voice. Smiling, the consort said, "You have finally woken. It seems your life has been snatched back from the brink. How are you feeling? These past few days it has been nothing but ginseng decoction keeping you alive. It has truly been hard on you." I whispered, "Auntie, thank you for saving me." The consort replied, "You must be terribly hungry, aren't you? Let me feed you a little something first." My whole body was limp and powerless, so I could only allow her to do as she wished. After a few mouthfuls of rice went down, I felt a comfort unlike anything I had ever experienced. Once I had eaten, I felt strength quietly returning to my arms, enough to support myself as I sat up. My heart was riddled with doubts, yet there were so many questions tangled together that I did not know where to begin. The consort of the Yen prince said, "Child, I know you have many questions you wish to ask, but your body is still very weak. Rest for now, there will be time in days to come." I nodded, and my body indeed needed rest. After that meal, the sleep that followed was especially deep and sweet. When I woke the next day, I was already able to get out of bed on my own. Inner strength may not serve as food, yet it can increase the speed of recovery several-fold. Just as I stepped off the bed, the consort of the Yen prince pushed the door open and entered. I greeted her, "Good morning, Auntie." Seeing that I could already stand, she exclaimed with joy, "Wonderful. You are able to get out of bed. Your recovery is quite swift." I said, "It is all thanks to your care, Auntie." The consort smiled but did not reply. Remembering something, I asked, "Auntie, what day is it today?" The consort pondered for a moment and said, Today is the 23rd day of the 12th lunar month. Tomorrow is Little New Year." I was greatly shocked and cried out, "The 23rd? Heavens!" The consort asked in surprise, "What is it?" I quickly calculated on my fingers and said, "Auntie, do you know when I was first thrown into the dungeon? It was the 3rd day of the 12th month, exactly 20 days ago." The consort said, "Not quite, 17 days. I rescued you 3 days ago." I asked, "Auntie, how did you know that I was locked in the dungeon?" The consort replied, "It is quite a coincidence, truly, proof that your fate was not meant to end. On the 10th day of the 12th month I happened to overhear the prince and that monk Dao Yen speaking in secret. They said they had already captured you and intended to let you die of thirst and starvation alive, but slowly. I immediately begged the prince to release you, but he stubbornly refused and forbade me from inquiring about you again. The next day the prince led his troops out to war and took Dao Yan along as well. Yet the dungeon entrance remained heavily guarded. Only 3 days ago did I find an opportunity to send the guards away." I patted my chest and said, "Once more I must thank you for saving my life, Auntie. Had you come a day later you would have seen nothing but Yang Yang's corpse." The consort said, "Child, those blessed by fortune are protected by heaven. Your nature is kind and pure, you are not meant to die a violent death. If you were to die, what would become of Yaya?" At the mention of Yaya, my expression changed. I said, "She, where is she?" Seeing my face, the consort seemed to understand something. She sighed and did not reply. I steadied myself, aware that I had lost composure. "Auntie, do you know about what has happened between Yaya and me?" The consort nodded and said, "I believe you have somewhat misunderstood Yaya." I said angrily, "She has deceived me so cruelly, about everything. She even lied to obtain my Wumu treatise." At the thought of this matter, my fury rose all the more. The consort snorted and said, "Yang Yang, now I must say you truly do not know good from ill. Yaya risked her very life to save you, and in return you offer her only these words." I asked in bewilderment, "Risked her life? To save me?" The consort nodded. "Do you realize you were poisoned by Wayne Xiaohan-san?" I started and exclaimed, "Wayne Xiaohan-san, I heard Dongfeng Xiao mention it twice. I was truly afflicted by that poison. What kind of toxin is it?" The consort said, "I do not know precisely what sort of poison it is. I only know that from the moment you were injured in Beiping you were already poisoned." I murmured, "Injured in Beiping?" The consort said, "From that time onward Yaya has silently borne far too much pain for your sake. And you still refuse to trust her and sit here baselessly suspecting her." I said anxiously, "Auntie, please stop speaking in circles. Tell Yang Yang everything from the beginning." Only then did the consort begin to speak at length, and what she told me left me stunned, where I stood unable to utter a word for a long time. It turned out I had indeed wronged Yang Yu, gravely wronged her. And for that fleeting moment of distrust I would have to pay a heavy price, carrying regret within me for the rest of my life. After seeing the light of day again, I learned of a conspiracy that was earth-shattering for me. Under my pressing inquiry, the Princess of Yen had no choice but to say, "Yang Yang, do you remember the incident in Beiping, the night duel in the Western Mountain Maple Forest?" Of course I remember that matter. Dongfeng Xiao and Feng Qinyang conspired to severely wound me, and later you saved me. Do you know why they didn't kill you? Why they let you go? This question had long puzzled me, and as the Princess of Yen asked it so directly, I shook my head in confusion. "Because after you were injured and fainted that night they poisoned you. The name of this poison is called 10,000 Evils Soul-Devouring Powder." I was taken aback, standing up and exclaiming, "What? 10,000 Evils Soul-Devouring Powder?" Yes, the Princess of Yen nodded slowly. "This poison has a very peculiar effect. On ordinary days it seems as if the person is not poisoned at all, but once they try to exert internal energy and harbor malicious thoughts of killing, their entire body will become weak and their limbs will become paralyzed, as if they were rendered useless." I slumped back onto the bed as if my doubts were beginning to unravel. However, with this mystery solved, even more questions rushed forward. I couldn't help but ask, "But why did they do this? Wouldn't it have been simpler to just kill me with a sword?" The Princess of Yen said, "Things are far more complicated than you imagine. You should now know their ultimate goal, right? Is it the Wumu legacy?" I asked. The Princess of Yen replied, "Exactly. The Wumu legacy." From Sue's anxious mouth they couldn't find any leads on this book. It stands to reason that this book must be in Yingtian, and you, being the sworn brother of the Emperor of Yingtian, are the only one they could target to obtain the Wumu legacy. "But what does this have to do with you?" I asked. The Princess of Yen replied, "You. She knew from the very beginning." I exclaimed, "What? She knew from the start? Why didn't she tell me?" "Yang Yang, it's not as you think. You did not conspire with them to harm you, she kept it from you to save you." "Save me?" I asked in astonishment. The Princess of Yen nodded, "Yes, to save you. I only learned about this a few days ago. After Dongfeng Xiao and his disciple poisoned you, they threatened you not to tell you and to use your feelings for her to scheme for the Wumu legacy. If you had known about the poisoning, you would have never been able to obtain the antidote. If you could get the book, that book would be the only condition for exchanging the antidote. I finally understood all of Yang Yu's strange behavior prior, and the reasons for my sudden loss of strength stemmed from this conspiracy that began when I was injured in Beiping. It had followed me to Yingtian, to Shaolin, to the military, and in the end they succeeded. The Wumu legacy has finally fallen into their hands. Zhu Di Dong Feng Xiao Feng Qin Yang Dao Yan, the monk, you must be secretly laughing somewhere right now. Laughing at this great fool Yang Yang, who so easily fell into your trap. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but chuckle. I really am foolish to the point of laughter. Auntie, this matter was orchestrated by Zhu Di, wasn't it? You knew all along, just like you were, right? No, the Princess of Yan said seriously. I only found out a few days ago. If I had known beforehand, I would never have agreed to their plans. Not just for you, but also for you. For you? I asked in shock. The Princess of Yan sighed and said, yes, for you. Yang, do you know how much suffering you has endured for you over the past 6 months? But this suffering she couldn't share with anyone, she could only bear it silently. To save you, she endured far too much unwillingness. I fell silent. I truly misunderstood Yang Yu. What she wrote in the letter was indeed true. She was trying to save my life, not betraying me as I previously thought. With this understanding, my heart felt suddenly lightened, and the worries of several days were swept away. Yang Yu did not betray me. On the contrary, she did all this out of love for me. She endured so much while I knew nothing. Now, thinking of the forced smile Yang Yu wore, there was such deep pain beneath that surface. The poison within you has yet to be resolved. Everything you has done has been in vain. The Princess of Yan continued. Auntie, you must have gone to find Dongfang Xiao to exchange for the antidote. Once I recover my strength, I will go find her. You has already returned. The Princess of Yan said, her face pale. I rejoiced and exclaimed, really? Auntie, quickly tell me, where is you? The Princess of Yan sighed and stood up, saying, come with me, but you must prepare yourself for what you will see. It may greatly exceed your expectations. Auntie, is is she all right? I hurriedly asked. The Princess of Yan said nothing further and turned to leave. I followed the Princess of Yan through a corridor to a garden where I saw Yang Yu resting her chin on her hands, lost in thought beside a stone table. I was overjoyed and disregarded the Princess of Yan's expression, rushing forward and calling out, you. I quickly reached Yang Yu's side. Yang Yu startled and looked up, standing up. I noticed she looked as thin as before, but her complexion was rosy, seemingly even more vibrant than before we parted, though her eyes were dim and lacked the brightness I was familiar with. Yang Yu stared at me but did not speak. I called again, you, I misunderstood you before. I owe you an apology. Yang Yu looked at me in shock and asked, you. Who are you? I was taken aback. Why was Yang Yu asking such a question? I quickly replied, you, it's me. Your brother Yang. Yang Yu gazed at me blankly and murmured, brother Yang. Brother Yang. At this moment I truly felt a sense of fear. How could it be that Yang Yu did not recognize me? I asked again, you, what's wrong? Don't you remember me? Yang Yu still had a dazed expression. I turned to look at the Princess of Yan, my eyes filled with confusion. The Princess of Yan slowly walked over and Yang Yu called out, Mama, who is he? Do I know him? The Princess of Yan smiled and said, you, this is brother Yang. You used to be very familiar with him. Yang Yu replied, oh. Brother Yang. Hearing her emotionless call of brother Yang, my heart sank to the depths, filled with confusion. What on earth had happened? Yang Yu no longer recognized me. I asked Auntie what on earth happened. The Princess of Yan sighed and said, you. She has lost her memory. I felt darkness before my eyes, nearly collapsing to the ground. I steadied my breath and spoke with a trembling voice, what? Lost her memory? How could this be possible? Yes, when Yu returned this time she remembered nothing at all, not even me. The Princess of Yen nodded. Why did this happen? What exactly is going on? I exclaimed, my voice rising. Just as I finished speaking, a familiar voice said, let me tell you what happened. I turned in shock to see a familiar face, Feng Qinyang. Upon seeing him I felt a surge of anger. All of this was orchestrated by him and his disciple, and the reason Yang Yu was like this was also due to their actions. He approached quickly. I clenched my fists and with a whoosh I swung a punch at Feng Qinyang, but he ducked his head and avoided it. I threw another punch, but suddenly a figure flashed, blocking me between Feng Qinyang. I quickly retracted my fist and focused to see that the person blocking me was Yang Yu, her face filled with anger as she shouted, what are you doing? Why do you want to hit my brother Qinyang? I was taken aback and asked, brother Qinyang. Yang Yu turned around and linked her arm with Feng Qinyang's, glaring at me and saying, yes. If you dare to hit my brother Qinyang again, I won't be polite to you. I was left speechless. Just a few days apart, brother Yang had transformed into brother Qinyang. It was truly a blink of an eye, like a hen turning into a duck. I exchanged glances with Yang Yu for a few seconds, then turned my gaze to Feng Qinyang, asking Feng Qinyang what exactly happened. Why did Yu lose her memory? How did she? Feng Qinyang first addressed the Princess of Yen, saying, greetings, Princess. The Princess of Yen nodded, saying, take your time and explain to Yang. Yu, I will take you to see something that I guarantee you will like. Feng Qinyang said to Yang Yu. Upon hearing this, Yang Yu's face lit up with joy, saying, okay. Okay. She turned to Feng Qinyang and said, brother Qinyang, I'll go with Mama for a moment and come back to find you later. She then made a face at me, saying, you can't hit my brother Qinyang again or I won't be done with you. As I watched the figures of the Yen Wangfei and Yang Yu recede, an inexplicable fear suddenly rose within me, fearing that what Feng Qinyang was about to say would be unbearable for me. Feng Qinyang, like me, silently observed the retreating figures of Yang Yu and her mother standing opposite each other in silence. Neither of us wished to disrupt this tranquil atmosphere, yet beneath this calm a fierce undercurrent surged. Finally, unable to hold back a sigh, Feng Qinyang sighed along with me and continued, brother Yang, it is truly unfair for you to only learn the truth today. If after hearing it you still wish to kill me, then Feng Qinyang will accept it without complaint. It all began with the fight in the maple forest, I said with a serious face. Feng Qinyang shook his head and replied, no. It started the very night you stepped into Beiping City. I recall that day when I first arrived in Beiping. The very next morning Zhu Di came to visit, and I never imagined that from that moment on I would fall into this great web. Feng Qinyang continued, the moment you leaped onto the city wall of Beiping, someone immediately reported to Zhu Di. He summoned Dao Yan and Dong Fangxiao that very night to devise a countermeasure. To be honest, brother Yang, your martial prowess is too formidable. Zhu Di was unable to eat or sleep peacefully after your arrival in Beiping. I came to Beiping solely to rescue you and never intending to trouble Zhu Di. Feng Qinyang replied, if you hadn't come to Beiping, you and I would have been married by now. Married? I exclaimed in disbelief. Yes, you completely withdrew to hide in the Butterfly Valley. Yu wept for many days, but eventually she smiled again. Zhu Di, in an effort to win over Dong Fangxiao, betrothed Yu to me. The Yen Wangfei hoped to help Yu forget you by ensuring she had a home soon. And what of you? What do you really think? I asked coldly. Feng Qinyang replied, brother Yang, you have hidden in the Butterfly Valley while Yu has longed for you. Can you truly say you have treated her fairly? Hearing this, I fell silent. I owed Yang Yu far too much for Zhang Minor. Yang Yu could do anything without my interference. Brother Yang, Yu is both beautiful and talented. I have long been infatuated with her. I cannot bear to let her wait for a love without an end. It took Yu 2 years to forget you, and at that time Feng Qinyang was truly overjoyed. Saying this, a smile appeared on his face as if he was lost in that moment. I had no words to say. Feng Qinyang continued, however, your arrival has disrupted everything. At that time Beiping was under siege and the entire city was in panic. Zhu Di was twice as worried, and under the cover of night he had Yu sent away while devising a plan to use her as bait to lure you into assassinating General Chao Yong. But Dao Yan, being cunning and calculating, feared you might change your mind and sent Dong Feng Xiao to follow you into Chao's camp disguised as you. As expected, this plan of killing two birds with one stone was flawless. Not only did it kill Chao Yong, but it also sowed discord between you and Zhu Yunwen, and unexpectedly it turned you into the public enemy of the southern martial arts world. I have figured this out. You deliberately let Chao Zhong escape, but did not anticipate he would reveal a flaw. Yes. Looking back, this was indeed an oversight. However, by a stroke of luck, had you not reconciled with Zhu Yunwen, how could you have acquired the Wumuishu? Tell me about your conspiracy to seize the Wumuishu. I urged. The idea to seize the Wumuishu has existed since the day Zhu Di rebelled, but we could not find it in the estate of Su Zingshou in Beiping until Chao Yong besieged the city and bloodied Zu's residence. I believe you already know this. This was revealed by Geng Xiaoxiong, who disguised himself as the steward of Zu's estate. It turns out it was true. The details of this are indeed correct, but that steward followed Su Zingshou after his death. We used his human skin to create a seamless disguise and deceived Su Huizu of Yingtian. That's a story for later. Let's first discuss the fight in the maple forest. Did you know I had arrived in Beiping early on? I asked. Feng Qinyang shook his head, saying she only found out after we injured you. For the sake of the Wumuishu, you has suffered too much. I said, what kind of poison have I been afflicted with? Feng Qinyang responded, this poison comes from the Zhouyin Jinjing. The Zhouyin Jinjing? I exclaimed. Yes, Feng Qinyang nodded. About a year after Dong Feng Xiao acquired the heavenly sword, he discovered a secret within the sword's hilt. The text mentions that during the late Southern Song dynasty, the legendary hero Yang Guo was afflicted with a deadly poison known as the love flower poison. Ah, that was in the Valley of No Feelings. I recalled. Feng Qinyang looked surprised. You know quite a lot even about the Valley of No Feelings. I replied, of course I know. The love flower poison affects those who harbor romantic feelings, causing it to act violently. It is indeed a particularly potent poison. Feng Qinyang paused, saying, indeed. This poison is related to human thoughts. When a person feels love, the brain secretes an unknown substance that upon encountering the love flower poison induces excruciating pain. Brother Yang, have you heard of Huang Rong? Huang Rong, the leader of the beggars clan, wife of the great hero Guo Jing and daughter of Huang Yaoshi, the master of Peach Blossom Island. She is chivalrous and extraordinarily intelligent, truly a remarkable woman in troubled times. I responded with a smile. Brother Yang, you are still young, yet your knowledge is so extensive. I truly admire you, Feng Qinyang said, staring at me. I smiled slightly and remarked, how did we end up talking about Huang Rong? This Lady Guo's intelligence is indeed unparalleled. From the principles of the love flower poison, she developed a poison known as 10,000 Evils Dispersing Powder. Yes, 10,000 Evils Dispersing Powder is the poison I was afflicted with. Correct, Feng Qinyang nodded. That Lady Guo has a chivalrous heart, and the great hero Guo Jing is exceedingly righteous. They would not wish to harm even the most wicked of people. The toxicity of the 10,000 Evils Dispersing Powder is such that if internal energy is driven to the limit while harboring murderous thoughts, one will become instantly powerless, as if turned into a cripple. Lady Guo based this on the principle of the love flower poison, where at the moment of murderous intent the brain secretes an unknown substance that upon encountering the 10,000 Evils Dispersing Powder renders the person completely powerless. You have fought Dong Feng Xiao twice, losing your strength at crucial moments, and this is the reason. Hearing this, I finally understood the nature and origin of the deadly poison coursing through my veins. In my heart I couldn't help but marvel at the wisdom of ancient scholars able to concoct such a miraculous poison. Feng Qinyang continued. The toxicity of the 10,000 evils dispersing powder does not manifest under normal circumstances. It only activates when internal energy is used with murderous intent. Additionally, during the first two incidents, recovery time is rapid. As soon as the evil thought dissipates, one feels fine. However, starting from the third incident, recovery time gradually increases. With each subsequent activation, recovery time extends further, and by the 10th activation, one is essentially doomed. Although it may not be fatal, one becomes no different from an ordinary person. It perfectly embodies the name 10,000 evils dispersing powder. As soon as evil thoughts arise, one's soul is dispersed. I was alarmed that this poison had already activated twice. When would the third activation occur? Would I have to control my murderous thoughts the next time I saw Dong Fengxiao? Impossible. How could I not take revenge for Zhang Minor? How could I ignore the blood debts of the Su family and the Yingtian Zhongshan Wang family? How could I disregard the earnest reminders of Master and Ying Weifan? Feng Qinyang continued. After we injured you, Dong Fengxiao, and I fed you the 10,000 evils dispersing powder using Dao Yan's strategy to have you care for you and threatening her with your life so that she could stay close to you. For you, she is willing to do anything I said. You poisoned me and told you that if she let me know about this, she would never receive the antidote, right? Feng Qinyang nodded. You is the person you trust the most after Miss Zhang. Having someone like her by your side means you would never suspect her. Recalling this, I couldn't help but think of several odd behaviors from Yang Yue. The first time was in the Beiping Tavern when Dao Yan wrote two characters on the table with his finger, and Yang Yue was immediately alarmed. I remember those two characters were will and letter. The second time, after the extermination of the Yingtian Zhongshan Wang family, when I and Su Huizu devised a plan to capture Dong Fengxiao, Yang Yu suddenly fell ill at a crucial moment. It was too coincidental, and now I think about it, she was just putting on an act. There were also a few other times when Yang Yu's tone was odd. She had once urged me not to harbor murderous thoughts. At that time I laughed it off, unaware that in her words lay a huge conspiracy. Feng Qinyang said, now that we have discussed this, you should be able to understand the events that followed. I nodded, saying I have figured out what happened afterward, but what about you? Did she ultimately obtain the Wumu issue, and what about the antidote? And why did you lose her memory? I asked. Upon asking this, an unusual expression flashed in Feng Qinyang's eyes, as if he was reminded of something very painful. I felt an increasing sense of dread, fearing that what he was about to say would shock me greatly. After the fall of Dongchang City, Dong Fengxiao and I fled to a dilapidated temple in the south of Dongchang City. Dong Fengxiao was frightened and was afraid you would pursue us. However, I knew you would never come after us, as you believed I had my reasons for doing so. We aimlessly lingered for 3 days, and on the fourth night you arrived. So you had already arranged this in advance, but how did you contact each other? I had no idea at all. I asked. There are spies within the Southern Army, even Zhu Di's secret agents. The spies cultivated by Dong Fengxiao are ones that Zhu Di is unaware of. When Jinan fell, if it weren't for your meticulous preparations, Zhu Di would not have suffered such a great defeat. Hearing this, I fell silent. In such a brutal ancient war, how could there not be spies? The intelligence system had long been perfected in previous wars. Sometimes a war could change dramatically because of a single piece of information. After you arrived, she handed the Wumu issue to Dong Fengxiao, but unexpectedly Dong Fengxiao refused to give her the antidote to the 10,000 evils dispersing powder. What? Although Dong Fengxiao is a notorious villain, as a generation's master and the leader of Mount Hua, how could he break his promise? I leaped up in shock. Deceiving you? Feng Qinyang replied, at that time I advised Master, now that we have the Wumu issue, we cannot go back on our word. I think we should give her the antidote. Dong Fengxiao said, what use is the Wumu issue at this time? My 20,000 elite soldiers have all been destroyed by that brat Yang. How could I give him the antidote? I want him to lose all his internal energy and become a cripple, only then can I vent my resentment. Yu upon hearing this furiously retorted, Dong Feng Xiao, you treacherous scoundrel, are you not afraid that this will bring shame to you in the martial world? Dong Feng Xiao ignored her and Yu pleaded, I beg you, mister. Dong Feng, please give me the antidote. Yang cannot become a cripple. Dong Feng Xiao laughed to the heavens, saying, I want him to become a cripple. Yang, you made my dreams come to nothing, so I want you to taste what it feels like to lose your martial arts. Hearing this, I slammed the table and shouted, Dong Feng Xiao, why do you hate me so much? Shouldn't everything you've done be punished by justice and truth? Feng Qinyang said, it's too late to say anything now. At that time when Yu saw that soft and hard approaches were futile, she cried out, Dong Feng Xiao, I will fight you. She lunged at Dong Feng Xiao, but Yu had no martial skills, so how could she reach him? Dong Feng Xiao sidestepped and Yu in her haste crashed into a pillar in the temple and fainted. What? Was the impact serious? I asked in alarm. Feng Qinyang smiled bitterly. That blow knocked all her memories out of her head, but she was otherwise unharmed. Do you consider that serious? I was silent. Yang Yu's memory loss was entirely due to me, yet I had no knowledge of it beforehand. I wanted to help, but I had no way to do so. Now hearing this terrible news, I felt an overwhelming sense of guilt. It was hateful that I had previously directed all my anger towards her when everything she did was truly to save my life, all for me. Feng Qinyang continued, after Dong Feng Xiao saw Yu faint, he said to me, Qinyang, if we wish to make a comeback, we must rely on Zhu Di. You and I will split up. You take the princess back to the Beiping Yan Wangfu. You must find a way to have the Wangfei betroth the princess to you. At that time you will be a county lord with great power and a promising future. I will go find Zhu Di. With the Wumu issue in hand, I am not afraid that Zhu Di will not give me military power. At that time we will work together to accomplish something great. But as for Yang master, I still feel that this is going back on your word, which is not the conduct of a great man. Dong Feng Xiao laughed. Those who achieve great things do not fuss over small details. Yang is my greatest enemy. If I do not eliminate him, I cannot eat or sleep in peace. Qinyang, throughout history, victors and vanquished exist in the future. When I, Dong Feng Xiao, unify the world, who will dare say I broke my promise? Ha ha. Ha ha. After hearing this, I could only remain silent. The world will eventually belong to Zhu Di. It's laughable that Dong Feng Xiao is still lost in his dreams of grandeur. I have made countless efforts to change history, but the trends of fate are such that no one can alter the course of history. Feng Qinyang looked puzzled. History? Brother Yang, what are you talking about? I smiled and replied, what I mean is some things are already destined to happen, no matter how we struggle to stop them. They cannot be changed. Feng Qinyang nodded yes. Just like this matter with Yu, who would expect it to turn out this way? Hearing the mention of Yang, I couldn't help but ask what happened to Yu afterward. Dong Feng Xiao left after saying those words. Yu remained unconscious until the next morning, but she forgot everything, even you. Feng Qinyang replied. Upon hearing this, my heart sank as if struck by a heavy blow. I faintly felt that I had already lost Yang Yu. When Feng Qinyang brought Yang Yu back to Beiping, it was already the 13th of the 12th month. He said. I nodded and replied, yes, that was the 10th day I was trapped in the dungeon. When we arrived in Beiping, Zhu Di had already led his troops out of the city. The Wangfei was heartbroken to see Yu's amnesia. After learning the reason, she meticulously cared for her. Yu's health improved day by day, but her memory remained unrecovered. Alas! It was all my fault that Yu ended up like this. I lamented. Feng Qinyang consoled. It's truly unfair to blame Brother Yang for this. Although it originated from you were completely unaware, and as you said, this is all fate. I hung my head in silence. The two of us remained silent for a long time, and suddenly we both exclaimed at once, Yu. Then stopped simultaneously. Feng Qinyang smiled and said, Brother Yang, I know what you want to say. But Yu no longer remembers you. In her heart, besides the Yan Wangfei, she only recognizes me. But I rushed to say, but Feng Qinyang interrupted, saying, Brother Yang, the current Yu is no longer the same Yu. In her mind there is no trace of you. Therefore what I want to say is that I will take care of her now. If one day she regains her memory and remembers you wishing to return to your side, Feng Qinyang will not stand in her way. But until Yu regains her memory, I hope you will not disturb her peaceful life. Is that alright? I couldn't help but worry and asked, is this Dongfang Xiao's order, or is this your sincere intention? Feng Qinyang stood up, raised his right hand and swore heaven above, from today on Feng Qinyang has no further ties with Dongfang Xiao, and for Yu my heart will remain steadfast. If I go back on this oath, may heaven and earth punish me. Looking at Feng Qinyang's resolute face, I sighed. It seems that Brother Feng truly has deep feelings for Yu. Feng Qinyang sat down and said earnestly, Brother Yang, my feelings for Yu will never be less than yours. You can rest assured to leave Yu to me. Hearing this, I knew that until Yang Yu regained her memory, this matter could not be reversed, and there was no way to demand otherwise. Looking at Feng Qinyang's expression, he did not seem to be lying. Perhaps entrusting Yang Yu to him is a good choice. But deep down I felt a stabbing pain. Although Yang Yu's amnesia occurred without my knowledge, it ultimately stemmed from me. As a man, I cannot use excuses to evade responsibility. As long as Yang Yu is happy, I must do my best to support her. Now, seeing Yang Yu's attitude towards Feng Qinyang, her protective demeanor suggests she has deep feelings for him. At least for now, what I must do is to support her and Feng Qinyang. After listening to Feng Qinyang's detailed account, I pondered for a long time and suddenly remembered something, asking, Brother Feng, where is Zhu Di now? Feng Qinyang replied, after Dongfang Xiao and I parted ways, he went to find Zhu Di. Since I arrived in Beiping, I have not seen Zhu Di again. Now that they have obtained the Wumu manuscript, they are like a tiger with wings, making the southern army dangerous. What do you plan to do now? I asked. Feng Qinyang said, now that I have Ye, I no longer wish to meddle in the affairs of the martial world. Brother Yang, although Dongfang Xiao and I have a deep-seated grudge, for the sake of Ye, I am willing to let everything go. I nodded and said, seeing you like this, I can rest assured to leave Ye in your care. After saying this, I stood up and said, all right, thank you, Brother Feng, for telling me the background of this matter. Yang is poisoned and disheartened. The affairs of the world are but smoke and clouds. From now on I will retreat to Diegu. Brother Feng, farewell. Feng Qinyang said, you have yet to resolve the poison. You must think of a way. I forced a smile and said, what use is it to find Dongfang Xiao if I cannot harbor thoughts of killing? Moreover, since I am retreating from the world and will no longer harbor evil thoughts, this poison will be as if it doesn't exist. Brother Feng need not worry about me. After saying this, I did not look back and walked straight out the door. As I reached the door, I saw Yang Yu and the Princess of Yan coming hand in hand. As soon as Yang Yu saw me, she shouted, why are you alone? Where is my brother Qinyang? You didn't bully him, did you? I forced a smile and said, your brother Qinyang is inside. With you being so fierce, how could I dare to bully him? Yang Yu said, humph. Just as long as you know. I'm going to find brother Qinyang. After saying this, she bounced away, and looking at her familiar yet strange figure, I couldn't help but feel a pang in my heart, nearly shedding tears. Turning my head, I discovered that the Princess of Yan was staring intently at me. I quickly collected my emotions and forced a smile, saying, Auntie Yang is going to say farewell to you. The Princess of Yan asked in surprise, farewell? Where are you going? I replied, after experiencing so much, my heart is too weary. I wish to retreat to Diegu and no longer inquire into worldly matters. The Princess of Yan advised, Yang, you are still so young. If it's for Ye. Sigh. Ye, I really don't know if there will be a day she remembers you. At least for now, what I can choose is to wish them happiness. Auntie Yang bids you farewell. The Princess of Yan said, everything is fated, dear child, take care of yourself. I nodded and said, there is one thing, Auntie, you are knowledgeable about history. Zhu Di will ultimately triumph. Yang Yang has experienced the suffering of war. I hope Auntie can persuade the Prince of Yen to cause less bloodshed. The Princess of Yen nodded and said, I will remember. I said, take care, waved my hand, turned around to leave, and felt a pang in my heart as if I had been struck deeply in my innermost self. As I stepped out of the Prince of Yan's mansion and looked at the bustling crowd, my emotions surged like waves. I remembered when I first arrived, filled with resentment and confusion towards Yang Yu. After being imprisoned in the dungeon, I experienced life and death, and upon my return I had become indifferent to worldly matters. However, after learning everything that transpired, I quietly realized that Yang Yu had unexpectedly lost her memory, not remembering me but only Feng Qingyang. My heart, once filled with resentment and confusion, instantly transformed into loss and sorrow, along with a sense of helplessness towards the affairs of the world. I wandered alone in a daze on the bluestone street of Beiping, with all kinds of passers-by brushing past me, yet I seemed to see nothing. I reflected on my experiences. After crossing into the Ming dynasty, I had numerous fortuitous encounters. I learned divine skills on Kunlun Mountain and gained immense fame in Shaolin Temple, my prowess in the Imperial Army unmatched. Such extraordinary experiences are likely unparalleled. The glory, prestige, and status I attained are beyond what any modern person could ever comprehend. However, the heights of martial prowess, the fame of reputation, and the pinnacle of power are ultimately like fleeting clouds. From the moment I stepped out of the Prince of Yan's mansion, all of this became insignificant in my heart. As the saying goes, gains and losses are intertwined. Where there is gain, there must be loss. While I gained martial prowess and status, the matters of the heart became an irreparable regret. Coming to the ancient times, I encountered Zhang Minor in Daegu, following her for 1,000 miles, gradually developing feelings, and we were supposed to grow old together. Yet fortune and misfortune are unpredictable. Dongfang Xiao wielded the heaven-defying sword, and the fragrant beauty perished. A generation's charm, her soul scattered in dreams. Thus I retreated to Daegu for 2 years, intending to spend my life with Zhang Minor, but then the tides changed and Yang Yu fell into crisis, forcing me to save her. Yang Yu, like me, carries the blood of the 21st century and has a modern freshness about her. A twist of fate changed the life of this innocent girl. Growing up under her father's warm wings, Yang Yu suddenly found herself in a feudal war era of deceit and treachery, a cruel environment that transformed a pure-hearted modern flower into a troubled beauty of the ancient world, filled with sorrow and lacking autonomy. The bittersweet experiences and the turmoil of her heart are beyond description. Living in the era of Zhu Yuanzhang, the heavenly princess was confined within the palace, surrounded by luxury, monotonous and dull, until my appearance stirred the still waters. However, our brief gathering soon ended in separation. Until I met Zhang Minor, who left in a huff. Yang Yu and I then set off northward together. Yet due to Zhang Minor's death, we were forced apart for 2 years. The reason lies with me, and I feel guilty towards Yang Yu. When Beiping was besieged, I felt a pang of conscience and went to rescue Yang Yue, which led to a grand conspiracy lasting half a year. This conspiracy ended with Zhu Di and Dongfang Xiao's victory and Yang Yu's loss of memory. I was poisoned, but what hurt me more was Yang Yu's amnesia. The 2 women I loved most in my life had either been separated by death or lost their memories. Is this the result I desired? Heaven opened many windows for me, but why did it close the 2 most important doors? Unknowingly, I had reached the city gate. I stumbled out of Beiping City and soon entered a mountain path where everything around me no longer caught my attention. My heart was tangled with countless threads that I couldn't untangle. I, a modern high school student, arrived in this Ming dynasty, seemingly influencing many major events, yet everything continued to advance in its original direction. The Jingnan campaign is the most typical example. Originally, Zhang Minor's death and my retreat to Daegu were largely due to my understanding that history cannot be changed and Zhu Di would be the ultimate victor. However, with Beiping under siege and Yang Yu in imminent danger, I had to save her. That day, Zhu Di seemed to be in dire straits, about to be captured by Qiao Yong, but due to unforeseen circumstances, my appearance led to Qiao Yong being assassinated by Dongfang Xiao. The situation turned dramatically and Zhu Di shifted from passive to active, conquering Shandong in 2 months with great momentum. At this moment I once again felt the irreversibility of history. In the end Zhu Di would still emerge victorious. However, Zhu Di's treachery ignited my sense of enmity, shaking my resolve to maintain the unchangeable nature of history. Moreover, Su Huizhu was undefeated and I soon captured several cities in Shandong. The Battle of Dongchang further crushed Dongfang Xiao. I fancifully thought, could it be that history can truly be changed? At that time I was full of confidence with the beautiful Yang Yu by my side, and the battlefield was a sweeping success, seemingly making everything in the world easy. History was on the verge of altering because of me. Yang Yu's theft of the book struck me like a thunderbolt, making me experience the taste of betrayal from the one I cherished most. I chose impulsively to head to Beiping alone, but fell into Zhu Di and Daoyin's trap, becoming trapped in the dungeon for 17 days, facing near death. After escaping from the prison I learned of hidden matters like clearing the clouds to see the blue sky, but then I was doused with cold water. Yang Yu had lost her memory. After experiencing so many national, familial, and worldly affairs, no matter how strong my heart was, I felt weary. Initially I had one matter left unresolved: to kill Dongfang Xiao for Zhang Minor's revenge and to seek justice for Yang Yu's unjust amnesia. However, I was poisoned with the 10,000 evil soul dispersing powder. If I find Dongfang Xiao once the thought of killing arises, my strength will vanish, making me an easy target. At that time not only would I fail to avenge myself, but I would also fall under the blade of the heaven-defying sword, losing my own life in the process. Thinking of this I couldn't help but feel disheartened. 1. I was heartbroken over Yang Yu's amnesia. 2. I resented fate for being manipulative, unable to seek revenge. The urgent matter was to find a quiet place to do 2 things. First, develop an antidote for the 10,000 evil soul dispersing powder. 2. Seek out renowned physicians and medical texts, as there must be a cure for amnesia. And this quiet place is none other than Diegu, where I can be with Zhang Minor and focus on refining medicine. The Diegu medical immortal left countless medical texts. I refuse to believe that heaven has truly cut off all paths. Upon thinking of this my heart became clear and I finally figured out the solution to these 2 vexing issues. Life finally had hope again. Without delay I hurried back to Diegu. Suddenly I looked up. The sun had set and it was already evening. I found a dilapidated temple in the mountains to spend the night. After a peaceful night I set off southward the next day. Just after crossing Shandong I heard rumors on the road that Zhu Di had launched an attack circumventing heavily guarded cities like Jinan, capturing Dongga and Zhoushan and advancing straight south to Peixian and Shuzhou. Upon thinking of this my heart became clear and I finally figured out the solution to these 2 vexing issues. Life finally had hope again. Without delay I hurried back to Diegu. Suddenly I looked up. The sun had set and it was already evening. I found a dilapidated temple. On this day I returned to Diegu after being away for more than half a year. The scenery remained unchanged, but inside the house and valley dust had settled and no one inhabited the place. I went straight to Zhang Minor's grave and saw that the grass in front of the grave was lush, covering the tombstone. I brushed away the grass and saw the inscription: grave of beloved wife Zhang Minor was still clear. A warmth surged in my heart as I gently stroked the tombstone with my right hand and softly said, "Sister Minor, Yang Yang has come back to accompany you. Have you been lonely these past few months?" The tombstone remained silent with no response. As spring blooms and summer sun glows, the 5th day of the 5th month has arrived, marking the good time of the Dragon Boat Festival. During festive occasions one tends to miss their loved ones. I sit alone before Zhang Minor's grave sipping wine as my feelings of sorrow gradually intensify. Over the past 6 months I have searched through the medical texts in the valley, comparing them with the medical canon I have memorized. Finally, in March I discovered a solution to counter the 10,000 evil soul-devouring powder. One ingredient, 7-star heart-ending grass, is precisely the antidote for it. I recall that the poison from the love flower was also resolved using heart-ending grass. It seems this herb can indeed counter poison, with poison alleviating one's heartfelt desires. Although I have resolved the poison within me, what I long for even more is to find a remedy for amnesia from the medical texts in the Butterfly Valley. Yet even to this day I have not found a single clue, and my heart grows increasingly troubled. At this moment Yang Yu and Feng Qingyang are likely already married. Even if I find a way to heal her, I cannot reclaim Yang Yu's affections. I feel guilty towards her, unable to live here in peace. I must think of ways to make amends, even if Yang Yu has already become another's wife. I calculate the days it should be now when Zhu Dis' army has bypassed the main forces in Shandong and is marching directly towards Yingtian. My bond with Zhu Yunwen still exists. I plan to head to Yingtian to rescue him from danger. History states that the Emperor Zheng Wen's whereabouts became unknown. It is not impossible that I might be the one to save him. One day I suddenly heard the sound of hoofs outside the valley, and a horse galloped towards me. From a distance I saw a figure that made my mind buzz. It was none other than the amnesiac Yang Yu. What brings her here? Why is she alone? Where is Feng Qingyang? I thought to myself that since the situation is unclear, it would be better not to meet her. I hurriedly hid in a big tree. The horse came to a halt outside the valley. Yang Yu dismounted gracefully, and her agility suggested that Feng Qingyang had taught her some riding skills over the past 6 months. Yang Yu entered the house moving slowly, her expression dim as if lost in thought. She walked slowly, admiring the flowers in the garden, and approached a room, pushing open the door. This room was the one she stayed in when she headed north that day. However, I had not inhabited it for a long time, and it remained lifeless. Seeing this, Yang Yu stepped back and entered another room. For these 3 years I have been sleeping in the bamboo hut before Zhang Miner's grave, while the other rooms were only cleaned occasionally by guests. No one has come for months, leaving cobwebs and dust everywhere. Yang Yu searched several rooms, all of which appeared to be long uninhabited. She returned to the garden side and said, "So you have never returned?" She lowered her head in contemplation. I was uncertain whether to go out and meet her. Suddenly she looked up and walked towards the back of the house, seemingly intending to pay respects at Husuo's grave. I leaped down from the tree and quietly followed her. Yang Yu quickly arrived at Husuo's grave. Upon arrival she gasped in surprise, having discovered Zhang Miner's grave. She knelt down, tears streaming down her face, crying for a long while. She raised her head and brushed her hand over the tombstone, murmuring, "Beloved wife. Beloved wife." She could not hold back her tears. Yang Yu sobbed, saying, "Sister Miner, although you have passed away, you have earned the title of beloved wife far happier than I who still live. I think he does not wish to see me again." After saying this, she stood up and walked towards the bamboo hut where I stayed. Upon entering the hut, she couldn't help but stop. The interior was simple and tidy, indicating it was often inhabited. The charcoal fire in the stove was still warm. Yang Yu, filled with surprise and excitement, rushed outside and shouted, "Yang, I know you're here. Will you come out and see me? I have regained my memory. I remember you, Yang. Although I am now married to Qingyang, I will never forget your kindness, Yang. Will you come out and see me?" Hearing Yang Yu directly mention her marriage to Feng Qingyang struck me like a heavy hammer on my chest, leaving my mind spinning, lost in confusion. Yang Yu called out a few more times, and I ultimately did not respond. Her calls grew louder, turning into tears. My heart ached, "You, how I wish to agree with you. But what good would it do for me to meet you? It would only disturb your peaceful life. You and Feng Qingyang are already married, why pull me back into this? Let you stay by your mother's side, let Zhu Di protect you, and I will feel at ease." Yang Yu, seeing my silence, cried, "Yang, if you refuse to see me, I will never be happy." After saying this, she turned and left the valley. I watched her thin figure depart, letting out a long sigh. A few days later I came to Zhang Miner's grave and knelt down, saying, "Sister Miner, I have urgent matters that require me to go to Yingtian. Once I've completed my tasks, I will return to accompany you for a lifetime, all right?" Though Zhang Minor can no longer respond, I still speak to her in a tone of negotiation. Having stayed in the Butterfly Valley for 2 years before I had left to rescue Yang Yu. Now half a year later, as I prepare to leave again, I feel a sense of reluctance. However, I know that Zhu Di's army is approaching Yingtian City and Zhu Yunwen's situation is dire. Out of loyalty, I must go and save him. History states that the death of Zhu Yunwen remains a mystery. While I cannot stop Zhu Di from changing history, altering this mystery should still be feasible. Thus I made my preparations and left the valley for Yingtian. This time my purpose is singular, to save Zhu Yunwen. Hence I traveled day and night without rest, hastening towards Yingtian. One day I arrived at the city of Yangzhou in Jiangsu. I had long heard that Yangzhou is a grand city in the south, once flourishing. However, at this moment the people were in a state of panic. I entered a tavern alone, ordered a few dishes and a pot of wine, serving myself as I listened to 2 people at the next table passionately discussing current events, their mouths foaming at the corners. I felt an urge to hear about the war, so I called out, "Gentlemen, I am drinking alone in solitude, why not join me for a cup?" The 2 men were dressed like scholars, likely sons of noble families. They exchanged glances, realizing I did not seem like a bad person and that I was quite young. One of them said, "This young brother seems to be extraordinary, inviting us to drink alone. We could not ask for more." Afterward they called for the waiter to bring the wine and dishes to my table. One introduced himself as Lu and the other as Chang. I clasped my fists and said, "So you are Lu and Chang brothers. I am Yang Xing from the central region of Anhui, new to Yangzhou. Are there any interesting stories here? The 2 of you do share them with me." Lu shook his head and said, "Brother Yang, you have come at an unfortunate time. If you had visited Yangzhou during peaceful days, it would have been a perfect place. Yangzhou is prosperous and known throughout the world, but coming now is not the right time." I feigned ignorance and asked, "Why is that?" Chang replied, "Brother Yang, coming from the north, you might not know that this city of Yangzhou now belongs to the Yan King." Upon hearing this, I was taken aback. This was not an act. I truly did not expect Zhu Di to move so quickly. I asked, "Zhu Di has advanced so swiftly. When did this happen?" The 2 men's expressions changed. Chang said, "Brother Yang, how dare you directly mention the Yan King's name? Are you seeking death?" I smiled slightly and said, "I misspoke. Please elaborate, my brothers." Their expressions softened a bit. Lu said, "In the first month of this year, the Yan King's army bypassed the heavily fortified Jinan in Shandong and marched directly towards Shuzhou. Later the army from Jinan pursued south. By April, the Yan army reached Suzhou and engaged in a fierce battle with the southern army at Chimay Mountain, where the Yan forces suffered a great defeat and both armies became locked in a stalemate at Feishui." At this point he paused. I exclaimed, "The Yan army suffered a great defeat?" Chang continued, "Originally the southern army outnumbered the Yan army by several times, and with the Yan army far from their base, their line was long. However, the Zhengwen Emperor of Yingtian suddenly recalled the troops led by Su Huizu back to Yingtian. The Yan army seized the opportunity, cutting off the southern army's supply lines, and achieved a great victory at Ling by capturing several hundred southern generals. From then on, the Yan army's morale surged, breaking through the Huai River defenses, crossing the Huai River and swiftly capturing Yangzhou, Gaoyou, Tongzhou, and Taizhou. At this time, the Yan King's second son Zhu Gaoshu led his cavalry to the battle, making the Yan army even stronger. As I listened, my heart raced and I hurriedly asked, "Where is the Yan army now?" Lu replied, "Today is the 8th day of June. On the 3rd of June, the Yan army crossed the river at Guazhou. The garrison commander in Zhenjiang surrendered the city. The Yan army has crossed the Yangtze River and is marching straight towards Yingtian. If nothing unusual occurs, Yingtian will fall into the Yan King's hands within 10 days." I was astonished. "Ah, they have already crossed the river." Both men nodded in agreement. I stood up and said, "I am fortunate to have met you 2 today and to hear your insights. I have urgent matters to attend to, so I must take my leave." After saying this, I took out a silver ingot and tossed it on the table, clasping my fists to the two men before quickly turning and leaving. Zhu Di has already crossed the river. My heart raced with anxiety, fearing that if I delay any further, Zhu Di would have taken Yingtian City. At that point, rescuing Zhu Yunwen would become exceedingly difficult. Thus I dared not linger, traveling day and night, and finally arrived at the outskirts of Yingtian City before Zhu Di launched his attack. Yingtian, the long-awaited Yingtian mansion, after more than half a year away from this first capital of the Ming dynasty. As I set foot on the path back to Yingtian, an inexplicable surge of emotion welled up in my heart, driven by Zhang Minor for Yang Yue, and even more because of history. I cannot help my sworn brother win this imperial struggle. Perhaps Zhang Minor's death and Yang Yu's amnesia are merely a shield for my evasion of history, just an excuse. At this moment, King Yan Zhu Di has already led his troops to the foot of Yingtian City. According to historical records, Zhu Di's army avoided Zhu Yunwen's main force, taking a detour southward, heading straight for Yingtian. Although Su Huizu followed later, Zhu Yunwen at a critical moment recalled Su Huizu's army back to Yingtian, thus Zhu Yunwen's position has become precarious. After traveling for several days, I arrived outside Yingtian City, where banners were waving and tents stretched for miles. The Yan soldiers were well ordered, their morale high, waiting for the right moment, turning Yingtian into meat on the chopping block. I already knew the outcome of this battle. What I must do now is to take Zhu Yunwen away, saving him from disaster. I was unwilling to charge directly into the Yan army's camp, so I waited until nighttime to cross the camp. After months of diligent cultivation, my inner strength had reached perfection far superior to what it was 6 months ago. Thus, traversing through the dense military encampments in the darkness felt like a fleeting shadow. Even if someone discovered a figure passing by, I would have long vanished, leaving them to wonder if it was a mountain spirit or a tree monster. As I reached the city wall towering over 10 zhang high, it posed no challenge to me. My Wudang sect's lightness skill Ti Yunzong is unparalleled in the world, perfectly suited for this moment. As I employed this skill, I couldn't help but think of Zhang Minor, my heart slightly aching, but I quickly steadied my mind and leaped onto the city wall. Just as I reached the top of the wall, I heard a shout, "Who dares to climb over the city wall?" As the words fell, a gust of wind swept towards me from the side. I sidestepped the incoming figure, and upon steadying myself was pleasantly surprised to see a familiar face, Guan Ming. I called, "Brother Guan, don't you recognize me?" "It's me, Yang Yang." At this moment the guards had already surged out from all directions, surrounding me. Upon hearing my voice, Guan Ming quickly waved his hand, walked over, and upon recognizing me was overjoyed. He hugged me tightly and said, "It's really you, young Master Yang. The Emperor has been longing for your return. This is wonderful. I'm also very happy. Brother Guan, please take me to see Brother Zhu." Guan Ming said, "The situation is urgent. I cannot leave my post. The Emperor is inside. Would it be acceptable for you to go in by yourself?" I nodded, thinking how admirable and respectable Guan Ming was for his dedication to duty. So I clasped my fists and said, "Thank you, Brother Guan." With that I proceeded towards the palace. The long-awaited Yingtian palace remained unchanged, but now with the Yan army pressing down, the people inside were in a state of panic, and the palace seemed to have lost its past grandeur, filled with a heavy, oppressive atmosphere. I did not want to alarm the palace guards, so I leaped over a concealed wall and, relying on my memory, arrived at Zhu Yunwen's chamber. Although it was past midnight, the candles in Zhu Yunwen's chamber still burned brightly. A thin shadow paced back and forth. My heart was filled with mixed emotions. That silhouette was indeed Zhu Yunwen, but he appeared much thinner than he had been 6 months ago. I jumped in, feeling a pang in my nose, unable to help but call out, "Brother." Zhu Yunwen abruptly halted, turning around in shock. Our gazes met, and both of our eyes reflected the joy of a long-awaited reunion. Zhu Yunwen stared at me for a while, then dashed forward to embrace me, saying, "My dear brother, you have returned." His voice choked with emotion, revealing his true feelings. I didn't know what to say at first, but after a moment I said, "Brother, I am sorry for not being by your side to assist you in your time of need. I truly feel ashamed." Zhu Yunwen gradually calmed down and said, "It's not too late for you to return now. Dear brother, I am so happy that you are back. I said seriously, brother, I have returned this time to ask you for a favor. Zhu Yunwen smiled and said, go ahead, I am the current emperor, there is nothing I cannot do. My heart ached as I thought to myself, this emperor might not last much longer. Brother, the Yan army is pressing down upon us, their might cannot be resisted. I have come to persuade you to flee with me to a remote place and enjoy brotherly joy together, wouldn't that be good? Zhu Yunwen was taken aback, his expression incredulous. Dear brother, why would you say such things? Our army has not yet fought the final battle with the Yan army, why would you speak of giving up so lightly? Are we to hand over this beautiful land to a traitor? I urged, brother, at this point do you not see the situation clearly? We have spent 3 years with forces several times greater than the Yan army and still have not been able to defeat them, and now they are at our gates. Do you think there is any chance of recovery? Such a beautiful empire is hard to come by. To retreat is to speak of a step back. What will happen to my ministers in the court? What about my 3 palaces and 6 courtyards? What will happen to these concubines? I seem to be unable to understand Zhu Yunwen. After 3 years as emperor, he had become so entrenched in worldly concerns. I could only persuade him. Have you ever heard the story of Lu Su advising Sun Quan during the 3 kingdoms? A minister can surrender and still be a minister, but if a king surrenders, if the other side does not kill you, then it is unreasonable. Zhu Yunwen pondered for a long while and said, in any case I am a king, the legitimate son of heaven. The state exists with me, if the state falls I fall. I will never give up without fighting to the last. Tomorrow Zhu Di will likely launch an attack. If we do not leave tonight, I fear there will be no opportunity left. Zhu Yunwen's face darkened. Yang, why do you always elevate others' ambitions? You return this time only to persuade me to avoid battle and become a turtle to be mocked by posterity. I remained silent. Zhu Yunwen saw that I did not reply and added, I heard that you are very close to the Yan king's wife, is there any truth to this? A sudden pang of sorrow struck my heart and I felt that the man before me had become so unfamiliar. I trembled and said, brother, do you suspect me? Zhu Yunwen's expression turned serious. I do not want to suspect you, but if you cannot clarify your relationship with the Yan king's wife, how can I trust you? How can I believe what you say tonight? A deep pain surged in my heart. Brother, you have changed. You do not even trust me anymore. We are sworn brothers, having vowed to share in each other's difficulties. How can you not believe me? Zhu Yunwen sighed and said, dear brother, it is not that I am overly suspicious, it is just a time when one must be cautious. Please do not blame me. A feeling of being suspected by my dearly beloved sworn brother slowly rose within me. I said slowly, if that is the case, brother, I take my leave. I will retreat to the mountains and forests and no longer concern myself with worldly affairs. With that I turned to leave. Zhu Yunwen called out, wait. I was taken aback and stopped in my tracks, not turning back, saying, does His Majesty have any further instructions for me? I felt a surge of anger and no longer referred to him as brother. Zhu Yunwen approached and said, dear brother, if you wish for me to believe you, you must do one more thing. At this moment I held a deep disdain for my brother, who was now an emperor. I coldly asked, what does His Majesty want me to do? Zhu Yunwen replied, if you can take Zhu Di's head, I will believe that you are still my good brother. I suddenly turned around, staring fixedly at Zhu Yunwen. At this moment I couldn't help but lament the corruption and extravagance within the palace. 3 years ago Zhu Yunwen was generous and straightforward with refined speech, truly a good brother. Even 6 months ago he had shown genuine feelings. Yet now, after 3 years as emperor, he was steeped in worldly matters. The pain in my heart was no less than that from Zhang Minor's death or Yang Yu's amnesia. My sworn brother, with whom I had shared many years, had now become someone bound by wealth and power. The pain in my heart was indescribable. My mind was in turmoil. I thought, since you doubt me, my beloved is dead, another is someone else's wife, and even my dearest sworn brother doubts me. I need not care about the history of the Ming dynasty or the Ming Qingzu. I gritted my teeth and said fine. I will agree to you. Zhu Yunwen's face lit up with joy. Now that's my good brother. I did not wish to say more and turned to leave. Zhu Yunwen called out again, dear brother, wait. I halted my steps but did not speak. Zhu Yunwen turned and entered the inner hall. After a while he returned with a knife, handing it to me. Dear brother, this is the dragon-slaying blade which has not been unsheathed for over 30 years. I bestow it upon you to take the head of the rebel Zhu Di. I saw that the scabbard seemed to be made of rhinoceros skin imbued with an ancient aura. Though the blade had not been unsheathed, it emanated a chilling aura. I had long heard of the dragon-slaying blade's fame, but I never thought I would one day wield it myself. So I took it, nodded, and leaped out the window. It was nearly 3 in the morning, yet the camp outside was still brightly lit, almost like daytime. I leaped down from the city thinking that the Yen soldiers were numerous as locusts. If they were to alarm the troops, even with 3 heads and 6 arms, I would likely face dire consequences. Thus I quietly slipped through the encampments. However, the patrolling soldiers were too numerous. After breaking through several camps, I was finally discovered. A shout rang out, some sounded alarms, and others rushed toward me. I silently lamented, but the situation had reached this point, so I could only fight bravely. Although 3 years had passed since Zhang Miner's death, I still believed she was killed by Zhu Di, and Yang Yu's amnesia was also partly his fault. Thus I harbored intense hatred for the Yen soldiers and resolved to show no mercy. With a swift motion of my right palm, the first soldier who charged at me collapsed silently dead on the spot. The others shouted and surged forward. At that moment my internal energy, aided by the 9 Yang divine skill, had reached perfection, and my I Ching muscles were also extraordinarily refined. With my palm strikes I dispatched one after another. In no time I carved a bloody path through them, leaving a pile of corpses behind, yet the Yen soldiers were too many. For every one I killed, 2, 3, or even 4 would take their place, pressing forward without end. My thoughts faded, and the image of Zhang Miner's pale face as she died flashed in my mind, coupled with my sorrow over Zhu Yunwen's suspicion of me. Each palm strike was infused with my true power, 1 strike 1 kill, unstoppable as I charged forward. Just as I was in the midst of killing, another person advanced. I struck out, but that person did not retreat, dodging my palm. My heart jolted in shock. Upon focusing, I found it was Kai Hu, someone I had previously fought against. No wonder he could evade my strike. Suddenly I sensed a foul odor approaching from behind. Without thinking, I leaped into the air, soaring 4 to 5 zhang high. Behind me the soldiers wailed and screamed, having succumbed to the Ziwu Duan Hun Sha poison. Without a doubt the Byron Taoist had arrived. Rising with righteous indignation, I shouted, those who block me shall die. I flew into battle with Kai Hu. 3 years ago, at the beginning of my practice of Qian Kun de Nuai, these two were no match for me. Now my internal and external skills had both advanced significantly. How could they still stand against me? I held a deep hatred for the Byron Taoist. Not only had he once killed my brother Husu, but he had also captured Zhang Miner. I was settling old and new scores together, so I attacked fiercely. In just a few exchanges the Byron Taoist could no longer hold on. With a direct strike to his chest I unleashed a yin palm that struck him squarely. He coughed up blood and collapsed to the ground. I knew that this strike had shattered his internal organs. He would not survive. Kai Hu, seeing the situation was not right, launched 2 fierce punches and turned to flee. I shouted, where do you think you're going? I grabbed a soldier and hurled him forcefully. The soldier was infused with my yang energy, and his head struck Kai Hu's back, resulting in a tragic scream as Kai Hu fell to the ground and the soldier's skull shattered, dying on the spot. 2 of their skilled fighters had perished, yet the soldiers still surged forward like a tide. I struck with my left palm and then my right, growing more spirited with each attack. Fortunately I was alone, and tens of thousands of soldiers could not encircle me at once. A dozen soldiers around me had already died in waves, and I gradually moved closer to the center of Zhu Di's camp. This battle was extraordinarily brutal. I walked a few steps, leaving behind a pile of corpses. Truly, as the ancient saying goes, amidst thousands of troops and horses it is as if entering a no man's land. I was astonished that I could achieve this. The dragon-slaying blade had yet to be unsheathed, yet I had already killed hundreds of their soldiers, perhaps rivaling the legendary Xiao Feng of old. Suddenly a horn sounded from within the Yan army. The soldiers around me parted, forming an orderly line. In front the soldiers opened a path, and 3 mighty steeds approached from behind with Zhu Di in the center. To his right was the Yan king's wife, who after several years still retained her charm, though her face showed signs of wear. To his left, of course, was Yang Yu. I dared not look at her. I heard Yang Yu call out, "Brother Yang Yang." I did not respond, only gazed at Zhu Di. Zhu Di smiled and said, "Such a hero, truly a rare find in a century. Yang Yang, if you surrender to me, I will ensure you are ennobled and promoted to minister." I said in a deep voice, "Zhu Di, do you still not understand my intentions? I am here today to take your life on behalf of my sworn brother." Zhu Di replied, "Do you really think you can kill me? How can you alone contend against my hundreds of thousands of troops?" I was unwilling to say more to him and intended to fly forward. Zhu Di suddenly reined in his horse and retreated, surrounded by soldiers blocking him, yet no one attacked me. I disregarded everything and charged forward when suddenly a long sword shot out from the side, emanating a chilling aura. It was the heaven-subduing sword. I was taken aback and hurriedly dodged, only to see a man standing with his sword drawn. Upon a closer look, my anger surged. It was Dongfang Xiao, the leader of Mount Hua. I could not help but shout angrily, "Dongfang Xiao, do you dare to block me?" Dongfang Xiao smiled and said, "Young hero Xia Yang, my duty as a general compels me to engage you." My heart burned with rage as thoughts of my grievances with Zhang Minor and Yang Yu resurfaced. In that moment my shock and anger intertwined. The tragic scene of Zhang Minor's death vividly replayed in my mind, and I shouted, "Dongfang Xiao, new grudges and old resentments shall all be settled today. I do not wish to waste words and will confront you directly." Dongfang Xiao held the sword in his left hand, and his right hand seemed to have new techniques, even more unpredictable than 6 months ago. With the left hand wielding the sword, the movements were completely opposite to those of the right, making it difficult to defend against. 6 months ago I had defeated him empty-handed, though at the last moment I lost all my internal energy, allowing him to escape. However, in terms of true skill, he was not my equal. At that moment his left-hand sword and right-handed hook flowed like water, moving effortlessly and proving even more formidable than 6 months prior. I dared not be careless. His Dugu 9 swords was profoundly mysterious, and a moment's negligence could lead to injury beneath his blade. Originally I had resolved to kill Zhu Di, then return to Zhang Minor's grave to take my own life, for I had altered history and must pay the price. However, upon seeing that Dongfang Xiao was still alive, I felt that if I did not avenge Zhang Minor, how could I face her in the afterlife? Therefore I became even more cautious in my actions. Dongfang Xiao and I had fought several times before. The first time was at the Yingtian Wang mansion, where he dismissed me and only exchanged a single move. The second time was at Shaolin Temple, where we both suffered injuries. The third time was at the Beiping Wang mansion, where he killed Zhang Minor and I severed his right wrist with a palm strike, then shot him in the back with the heaven-subduing sword. I thought I had killed him, but in my grief over Zhang Minor's death I did not look closely. The fourth time was a night battle in the maple forest of Beiping's western hills, where he conspired with Feng Qinyang to wound me and then intentionally let me go, feeding me the deadly 10,000 evil soul-devouring powder. After that we fought once in Yingtian and once in Shendong, seemingly at a stalemate. Now in our 7th encounter both our martial arts had advanced significantly. His left-hand sword was more mysterious than his right-handed sword from years past, and surrounded by soldiers who were restless, the Yan troops did not dare to shoot arrows as long as Dongfang Xiao and I were fighting. The loss of their most formidable weapon was greatly in my favor, but I knew I had to end this quickly, otherwise if I exhausted my strength in this fight with Dongfang Xiao, all would be lost. In the heat of battle, Dongfang Xiao lunged at me with another sword strike. I dodged to the side and swiftly drew the dragon-slaying blade from my back. With a loud clang, the blade emitted a cold aura like a dragon roaring or a tiger howling. Dongfang Xiao was taken aback and hurriedly retracted his sword. I would not allow him the chance. Using my internal energy, I redirected the heaven-subduing sword while my right hand brought the dragon-slaying blade down fiercely. With a soft crack, both the heaven-subduing sword and the dragon-slaying blade shattered into 4 pieces. The surrounding guards shouted in unison while Dongfang Xiao stood in shock holding half of a broken sword. This world-renowned weapon, invincible, had once again been destroyed by my hand. Seeing Dongfang Xiao stunned, I seized the opportunity and struck down towards his head. Dongfang Xiao was startled and had no choice but to raise his palm to meet mine. With a crack, he staggered back several steps. I did not give him a chance to catch his breath and quickly advanced, and the two of us engaged again. However, without the heaven-subduing sword, how could he still be my opponent? After exchanging a few moves, I forced Dongfang Xiao to sway uncontrollably. Under my Qian Kun de Nuai technique, he could no longer maintain his stance. I extended my right palm and Dongfang Xiao could no longer resist. The palm struck his chest and blood spurted from his mouth. Fearing I might kill him, I rushed forward and delivered another palm strike using all my strength. Dongfang Xiao's bones cracked and disbelief filled his eyes as he gritted his teeth, saying, "The 10,000 evils, soul-devouring powder. How? How?" I shouted, "Dongfang Xiao, go to hell." With another palm strike, Dongfang Xiao's body soared into the air. I kicked up the half-broken heaven-subduing sword from the ground, the blade darting out and piercing Dongfang Xiao's heart, carrying him onward and crashing him into the crowd. As everyone stared at Dongfang Xiao's corpse flying through the air, I leapt forward and closed in on Zhu Di. The guards beside Zhu Di were startled and rushed to protect him. I swept my legs, sending 2 guards tumbling aside, and took another step, grabbing Zhu Di by the neck, shouting, "Who dares to come closer?" The guards all halted in their tracks. Zhu Di's face turned pale as he shouted, "Everyone stay still." In tonight's great battle, I had stormed through hundreds of thousands of troops, killing mercilessly, and ultimately captured the commander. Everyone regarded me as a supernatural being, and they all stood frozen, not daring to advance. My eyes were bloodshot as I slowly raised my right hand. The Yan princess stood beside me, her face calm as she said, Yang, if you want to kill the prince, I will not stop you and cannot stop you. If he dies, I will go too, but please do not harm you promise me." Upon hearing this, I looked towards Yue, who leapt off her horse and threw herself onto the Yan princess, crying, "Mom, don't die. Let's find a deserted place to live together, okay?" The Yan princess murmured, "A day as husband and wife means 100 days of grace. I have been married to the prince for 10 years, which is already enough. Yue, the only regret in my life is you and your father." Hearing the Yan princess mention Yang, a flash of realization struck me. I am a person from the modern era, and both the Yan princess and Yang Yu are also from the modern era. This history, which originally could not be changed by anyone, was about to be altered because of a single thought of mine. I, who did not belong to this era, had inadvertently become the sinner who changed history. I trembled as I said, "Auntie, I am sorry. If I kill Zhu Di, I will surely die to atone for my sins." The Yan princess did not respond and softly recited, "When parting from my hometown, my beloved remains the same. How I hate the impermanence of life. The affairs of the world are hard to predict. The dreams of infatuated people twist and turn, yet in the blink of an eye they become nothing, they become nothing." Her words struck me like a great bell, awakening me, making me see clearly. I glanced at the Yan princess, then at Yang Yue, and said sadly, "Auntie, I understand now. This world does not belong to you or me, so why must we force it?" I released Zhu Di and said, "Zhu Di, today I will not kill you, but you must agree to 3 conditions, otherwise even if I die today I will still kill you swiftly." Zhu Di, taken aback, could not have imagined there was still hope for his life. He hurriedly said, "Speak. Not just 3, but if you ask for 30 or 300, I will agree to you." I said, "First you must treat the princess and Yue well. If I find out that you mistreat them even if you become emperor, killing you will be as easy as pie. Zhu Di replied joyfully, you need not worry, I will treat them well. I continued, second, after you capture the city you must treat the common people kindly. My brother Zhu has already died. You should not seek him anymore. Zhu Di said, all right, I promise you. I then said, third, if you become emperor you must move the capital to Beiping and revise the penal code forbidding the wanton killing of innocents. Can you agree to this? Zhu Di hesitated and said, Yingtian is the foundation of the Ming dynasty. Can we discuss the matter of moving the capital later? I replied, this is the palace of my elder brother, you have no right to occupy it. If you do not agree we will have to perish together. Zhu Di said, fine fine. I agree. With Zhu Di forced to agree to these three conditions I thought there was nothing more for me to be concerned about. However, Zhu Yunwen was still my elder brother and I had to take him with me. So I turned to leave when Yang Yu called out, Brother Yang, do you really not wish to say one more word to me? I replied sadly, Yu, I am sorry. My heart is already dead, I can only repay you in the next life. I hope you find happiness. With that I turned and walked away. Yang Yu cried out hoarsely but I paid no attention. The soldiers having witnessed my might saw that I did not kill Zhu Di and silently parted to make way for me. I returned expressionlessly to the Yingtian palace. Zhu Yunwen had long been anxious and restless. Upon seeing me return he hurriedly said, virtuous brother, how did it go? I shook my head in despair and said, elder brother Zhu Di cannot be killed. You should come with me. Zhu Yunwen shouted, You dare to betray me? You. I said, elder brother, how could I betray you? Come with me to a deserted place and no one will be able to harm you anymore. At that moment someone approached with a report, Your Majesty, the Yan army has breached the north gate and is currently advancing towards the palace. Please prepare, Your Majesty. Zhu Yunwen was alarmed and sat down heavily on the ground. I quickly went forward to help him up and said, elder brother, hurry and come with me. Zhu Yunwen shouted, let go of me. You are the one who led the Yan troops in here, you have betrayed me. I urged, elder brother, calm down. We need to leave quickly or it will be too late. Zhu Yunwen was already in a state of confusion saying, I am the emperor. Why should I leave? I am the true master of this palace. I said, elder brother. Zhu Yunwen replied, do not call me elder brother. You are not my brother. You colluded with Prince Zhu Di to seize my throne. I hurriedly said, elder brother, you are being irrational. Just as I reached out to pull him, my concern for the battle outside made my head turn towards the palace gate. Suddenly I felt a sharp pain in my chest and turned in shock only to see Zhu Yunwen holding a dagger, its tip having pierced my back. In that instant the pain in my heart far surpassed the pain in my body. My sworn brother had actually turned on me merely because of suspicion. I looked down at the dagger protruding from my chest, it had entered from my back and pierced my heart. The only pair of mother and son dragon phoenix pills in the world had already been consumed by me at Shaolin Temple. With this injury I feared that even the highest celestial being could not save me. I could not care about the pain in my body and said, elder brother, why? Why? Zhu Yunwen seemed to have gone mad, shouting, you betrayed me. I will kill you. I will kill you. At that moment the palace outside was in chaos, the sounds of mocking and the flickering of flames were faintly heard. I urged, elder brother, hurry and leave. If you don't leave now it will be too late. Zhu Yunwen seemed to be oblivious, he tore down the bed curtains and ignited them in the candlelight. In an instant the room was ablaze. I wanted to save him and escape, but the pain in my chest was unbearable and I could not even muster the strength to move my arm. In this situation I could not help but sigh deeply, saying, elder brother, do you remember what we swore when we became brothers? To face difficulties together. Who would have thought that today we would truly die together? Zhu Yunwen's mind cleared slightly as he saw me collapse. He rushed over saying, virtuous brother, what happened to you? I smiled and said, "Elder brother, today we die on the same day of the same month in the same year. It is not in vain that we became brothers." "Elder brother, I want to tell you something." Jin Yong asked, "What is it?" I said, "Elder brother, do you know who I am? In fact, I am not from this era. I was born in the modern society 600 years later. I am well aware of the history of the Ming dynasty, so I cannot kill Zhu Di. I cannot change history." Jin Yong was taken aback, stammering, What? Is this true? This is unbelievable." I forced a smile and said, "Elder brother, I have always considered you my closest brother. Why would I lie to you?" Jin Yong touched my chest wound, his hands covered in blood, and exclaimed, "Virtuous brother, why didn't you say this sooner? It is elder brother who has harmed you." I said, "The Yan princess and Princess Jianxi are also like me, people from 600 years later. Elder brother, you should believe me now, right?" Jin Yong's tears streamed down as he suddenly grabbed the dagger from the ground and with a swift motion stabbed it into his own chest. I was alarmed and exclaimed, "Elder brother, what are you doing?" Jin Yong said, "We will die together." I realized my injuries were too severe and there was no hope for recovery. I was filled with despair. The thoughts swirling in my mind were of my life experiences, football, martial arts, things that seemed completely unrelated yet appeared in my life. Time travel was even more unfathomable. In this life I had fought fiercely and loved passionately. Though life is short, it has not been in vain. I felt my lungs drawing less air, gradually unable to take in even a breath. In the end I lost consciousness. I knew I was dead. The soul felt as if it had detached itself. The sensation of death was surprisingly devoid of feeling, as if it were more comfortable than being alive. However, I gradually regained some awareness, first through my ears hearing a voice exclaim, "This is truly incredible. This person has been in a coma for over 4 years and is actually responding. It's a miracle. I must hurry and call the professor." I was bewildered and soon I could open my eyes as well. The first thing I saw was a lamp. I was taken aback. Wasn't I in the Ming dynasty? How could there be a lamp? Then I recalled, wasn't I killed by Zhu Yunjun? I was supposed to have perished in the Ming dynasty palace by fire. How could it be? My body seemed to be able to move. I got out of bed and was enveloped by a familiar sensation long forgotten. Was this a hospital? Yes. It was a hospital room complete with electric lights, a television, and a telephone. Oh my! I had returned to the modern era. Suddenly I remembered someone saying in a coma for 4 years. Could it be? I dared not think further and slowly walked out of the hospital room, down the stairs, out of the building, and finally out of the hospital. Outside was a roadway with cars occasionally passing by. I raised my finger and bit it hard. Ouch! That hurt. I wasn't dreaming. I had truly returned to the modern era. Was my experience in the Ming dynasty merely a dream? How could the memories from that dream be so vivid? I wandered aimlessly when suddenly a large truck rushed past behind me and a bicycle shot out from a side road. A collision seemed inevitable. Without thinking, I didn't know if I could catch up to the truck, but instinctively I quickened my pace and leaped into the air, instantly catching up to the truck. At that moment the truck could not brake in time. In a split second I pushed against it with both hands, and with a whoosh the vehicle flipped over on the roadside. I stared blankly at my hands. A familiar warmth surged within me. It was the Nine Yang divine art. What on earth was happening? I was utterly baffled. The truck driver crawled out of the vehicle bloodied and confused, not knowing whether to feel grateful or lament his misfortune. However, he certainly couldn't fathom how his truck had suddenly tipped over. Suddenly a voice reached my ears, "Thank you." Upon hearing that voice I felt it was incredibly melodious, as if I had heard it before. Yes, it was on the morning of the meteor shower during the basketball game. But what struck me more was that it was Yang Yu's voice. My heart jolted as I looked towards the source. In an instant I could not tear my gaze away from her. She looked identical to Zhang Minor, and I couldn't help but exclaim, "Sister Minor." She was a girl about 17 years old, her mouth agape in confusion, and she replied, "Thank you for saving me, but I am not your sister." I calmed slightly. Aside from her resemblance to Zhang Minor, she differed greatly in every other aspect. She was a quintessential modern person, radiating a fresh contemporary aura entirely unlike Zhang Minor's classical elegance. But why did she look exactly like Zhang Minor, and why did her voice sound just like Yang Yu's? I chuckled blankly and said, "I'm sorry, miss, I mistook you for someone else." The girl smiled sweetly and said, "You saved my life, I can't thank you enough. But I have to go to class now. Let me give you my phone number, he'll treat you to dinner another day as a token of my gratitude." With that she took out some paper and a pen from her bag and wrote her number for me. Then she rode off on her bicycle, leaving me standing there uncertain of what to think. I walked for a while and arrived at a bustling market I was very familiar with. I used to often drink with friends here. Now returning felt like a lifetime had passed. Everything seemed largely unchanged, yet it felt so unfamiliar. While walking, I suddenly heard someone shout, "Thief! Help!" Turning around, I saw 3 people charging at me with daggers, while an elderly woman behind them screamed at the top of her lungs. As the 3 robbers rushed towards me, they shouted, "Get out of the way!" My heart ignited with anger. As the first man approached, I swung my right palm out. He felt a gust of wind rush at him and was propelled backwards over 3 meters, crashing to the ground and unable to get up. The other 2, seeing this, swung their knives at me. At that moment they seemed insignificant in my eyes. I snatched one of their knives with one hand and kicked the other in the abdomen. He cried out in pain. Fortunate that I hadn't used the 9 yang true chi, otherwise it would have cost him his life. The remaining one turned to flee, but I would not let him escape. My right hand shot out like a meteor, and with a bang the hilt struck his back, causing him to collapse to the ground. The crowd erupted into applause, and I realized a large group had gathered around when someone suddenly shouted, "Watch out!" I was startled to see the robber I had kicked down pull out a handgun from his pocket. With a bang he pulled the trigger and the bullet whizzed towards me. My body retained the power of the 9 yang divine art. I felt the bullet's speed was fast, but not much different from Dong Fengshao's sword. I immediately activated the Qinkuan Great Shift, redirecting the bullet's force. My right hand extended, catching the bullet, and with a slight smile I opened my hand, allowing the bullet to fall to the ground with a thud. The crowd fell silent, clearly stunned by the scene before them. The robber was horrified, thinking he had encountered a deity or ghost. His eyes rolled back and he fainted on the spot. I chuckled and slipped away from the crowd, leaving silently while the crowd began to buzz with discussions. In my days I boarded a bus that was stopped at the station when a newspaper vendor climbed aboard shouting, "Extra, extra! Major news! A modern smartphone has been discovered in a Ming Dynasty tomb." I felt a sudden dizziness, and in that instant 4 words surged to my mind, dreaming of the Etian. How many flowers have fallen in dreams, past events buried in conversation. Looking back, the dreams of the 2 are already faint, love hard to revive, all is empty. The tales of Etian and the rivers and lakes, 1,000 troops and horses of 9 yang skills. In the end, only regrets remain at the ends of the earth as smoke dissipates and clouds scatter, thus it ends.